All right, it's time to talk basketball. I'm Jose Salviati, editor at thebeachbasket.net. He's Steve Purciello, a longtime educator, vice principal, high school basketball coach, and athletic director. And this is the Shot Clock Pod, the best 24 minutes of NBA random thoughts online anywhere. Again, if you've been listening to us for a while, I won't keep regurgitating this bit of information, but we used to be the best 15 minutes of random NBA thoughts online, but we have expanded. It makes a ton of sense. Players get 24 seconds to shoot. We get 24 minutes to chat. This podcast was born out of the contents of Steve's 13 Rules Random NBA Thoughts articles, which he publishes weekly. Steve and I have exactly 24 minutes to discuss what's on his mind around the NBA. Today, we'll discuss his latest 13 Rules Random NBA Thoughts article, where he shares his thoughts on NBA drama in LA, the second apron, and a few other NBA problems. We'll get into it. Now, this week, if you were with us last week, we were going to talk Spurs basketball. Unfortunately, one of the Spurs bros got sick, didn't feeling well. We're going to do that next week. I'm excited to talk Spurs basketball. I think it's going to be an exciting basketball team in the 2025-26 NBA season, and we'll talk to the Spurs bros about that next week. But today, we got a lot on our plate. Lots of good stuff to talk about. Steve, are you ready?
I'm ready.
Let's do it. I'm going to start the timer and we're on. All right, let's start with the Los Angeles Clippers. This came out of nowhere. The Los Angeles Clippers were enjoying a great offseason, touted as the best moves, the best team as far as offseason moves. People were picking them as a sleeper choice to get to the finals. Everything was going great. And then all of a sudden, this thing drops. And if you haven't been paying attention, the thing is, I won't get into a lot of detail, but it looks like maybe the Clippers circumvented the salary cap. They signed Kawhi Leonard, and then magically he gets a $28, $50 million endorsement deal, which is essentially money for not even showing up. And it's a problem for the Clippers right now. So you wrote about that. You said, if guilty, what is Adam Silver going to do to the Clippers? It's an interesting conversation. What do you think about it?
I'm going to turn it back to you first to start off. I want to hear what they're saying out in LA and what you're thinking.
It's funny because LA Clipper fans are a special breed of people. Okay, let me tell you what I mean by that. The Los Angeles Clippers, as we all know, are an unfortunate franchise in terms of winning history. They just don't have it, right? Now, they've been the best team in LA record-wise for 15 years, but they don't have any rings to show for it. They live in the shadow of the Los Angeles Lakers. They always have, and I just don't see that changing. And on top of that, there's this talk. You don't hear about it as much, but there was always a talk of the Clippers curse, right? Something always goes wrong. They get Danny Manning, a phenomenal basketball player, and then he gets injured. Blake Griffin, as soon as he got drafted, he got injured his first year. So there's this talk about this is the Clippers being Clippery, right? That was the first thought. And even Clipper fans are saying, yeah, it probably happened. I could see it happen. We're going to keep being Clipper fans. It's an interesting reaction, right? But now that we're getting out the end of this, out on the other end of it, and Steve Ballmer has come out and said what he said. And he's saying, listen, man, we got nothing to do with this. We had a partnership with this company. We have a partnership with Kawhi. It's within our rights to introduce the two. And that's what we did. What they did together, I don't know about. Now, that's good, and that's the right thing to say. But there are some smoking guns there that I'm sure the NBA is going to investigate. Now, important to note, they already investigated about this. And back, I think, when Kawhi first signed his contract, because there was some rumblings then. Why did he pick the Clippers? And they cleared the Clippers of all wrongdoing. But the NBA has said, if there is something else comes up, we're going to take another look. So they're probably taking another look. Nobody here, Clipper fans, are not worried. Laker fans are giddy about all of this happening to their little brother. But it's a weird situation. We'll see how it plays out.
There's so many pieces to this. First of all, Steve Ballmer is the richest guy in the league.
Yeah.
The second apron, which we'll talk about later, was created because of him, basically. So I am sure he's a likable man, but I am sure a couple owners there might be happy about this if he's guilty, because if they force him to sell and so on. Now, remember the commissioner, Adam Silver, he runs the league. He's got a lot of people he hears, owners. So he's got
Yeah.
an issue. If it is true, if it's true, he's got to make a decision. Now, remember the last two investigations I mentioned, Sorver in Phoenix and
Yeah.
Sterling, he forced them both to sell.
Yeah.
I don't know if it'll come to that. I don't know where it goes. I don't know what happens, but it gets very interesting if it gets to that point.
Yeah.
There's a couple things here, and it's really, when you think about it, it's unwrapping a lot of things. One of the things you got to realize, there's been talk, for example, Jalen Brunson was going to the Knicks before the actual time, the day he signed. And there's been other free agents that this has happened. So there's a lot of shaky things going on in the NBA. Let's face it, agents being agents, they're calling teams and they know if somebody wants them or doesn't want their player. So that's always been something that's gray. There's a lot of gray in the NBA.
Yeah.
This goes a little bit further because when you think about it, how do you get a guy to come to your team when everybody's offering similar money and a similar situation? And if you really think about it, Los Angeles. It's a heavy tax state.
Yeah.
For example, I don't know what the taxes are in Toronto, but Kawhi was wanted by Toronto. Let's start thinking about it. Also, Bomber gave that company 50 million as a start.
Yeah. One of the
That's-
smoking guns. Yeah.
That's where it gets real interesting. Is he just giving out 50 million to everybody? So it gets interesting. They do need to prove their case. Bomber denies it. But you know what? I'll say one other thing. Bomber didn't get to where he is in life being stupid.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm not saying to say he's guilty, but it's really an interesting mess.
Yeah. Undeniably an interesting mess is the best way to put it. You mentioned one smoking gun, that $50 million investment. The other one is in the contract. It specifically says Kawhi didn't have to do anything, which is odd. And it specifically says if he ever does not work for the Los Angeles Clippers, his contract is null and void. Super weird. But we'll see. We'll see. It's up to the NBA.
If they're guilty, what do you do?
My understanding is the collective bargaining agreement, and I haven't read it. This is just stuff I've heard, but it puts limits on what you can do. It puts limits on the penalties. You'll remember back, you didn't write about this, but the Minnesota Timberwolves, right?
Yeah.
They similar situation, different circumstance, but they tried to circumvent the salary cap to sign Joe Smith. That wasn't Joe Smith.
Yes.
I remember. Was it Joe Smith? And they cost them 5 first round picks. The CBA now puts that limit at 1. So the worst they could do to the Clippers is 1. Now, keep in mind, they only own 2 over the next 5 years. So that's pretty significant. But they can't, there's no death penalty anymore. So we'll see. We'll see. I get the sense that where there's smoke, there's fire, and something shady went on here. But I don't think it's going to raise to the level of what we saw in Minnesota in the 2000s or whatever that was. I think by the start of the season, do you remember last year? Maybe it was 2 years ago. Everybody was talking about, it was 2 years ago when Draymond Green hit Jordan Poole in practice. And that's all anybody talked about for a month or so. And then he just went away. And of course, Jordan Poole went away too. I think that's what's going to happen with this. It's the talk of the NBA right now. And I think maybe when the season starts, it's just going to blow over. And there'll be a fine, but it'll be a slap in the wrist. That's my thinking.
You might be missing something. I think the other owners would like to see Bomber quieted.
Oh, sure.
So I don't know if it'll blow over that easily.
Okay.
He's come into the league. He's built a perfect arena, the best arena in the league.
Yeah.
He's got so much money. 50 million to a business is like me throwing 50 cents away. It really, it's interesting. And if he's guilty, the question is, do they make him sell?
Yeah.
That would be
Yes. Yeah, that would change everything. I hope it doesn't come to that.
Me too.
Let's see. Yeah. While we're on the subject of kind of sad news, let's talk about Ben Simmons. How's that for a segue? You wrote that he's talking about retirement. This is a guy, there's a term that I've heard, and I don't remember if this is school or where I first heard it, but a firecracker kind of career. And that was Ben Simmons. When he came out, there was a big bang, and everybody watched. It was an awe, and he was dynamic and triple double, a 6'9", 6'10" dude who would handle. We knew he couldn't shoot, but he could do everything else so well that it didn't really matter. And then all of a sudden, his decline has just been shocking. And now he's talking about retirement. That just blows my mind. What do you see in the future? What do you think is going to end up? What do you think is going to be the end game
Well,
this season for Ben Simmons?
as I said, his whole world blew up in that game against Atlanta when he didn't shoot, tried to pass it off, afraid of getting fouled. From that point forward, in the fourth quarter, he became unplayable because teams will foul him and he doesn't want to go to the line. And it took away everything from him. But the thing that you really couldn't count when the Nets traded for him a couple of years ago, trading Harden and all, you couldn't account for the fact he doesn't like I don't know if he likes basketball.
Yeah.
I don't know. And that's the piece. Because I think in his mind, if he comes back, he's going to have to take the minimum salary. And I don't know if he thinks it's worth it. He's made a lot of money, enough for his life and to live a nice life. So you have to wonder that. And as I said, what has he played? 100 and something games in 3 years? And less than half of the team's scheduled games on the teams he was with, he got in. He was constantly sitting out back to back, always his leg hurt or whatever, and it became ridiculous. So I guess the best way to put it is, I don't know if he ever really liked the game as much as he was pretty good at it. And I think he was a very, not a confident man, obviously. And once they blew that balloon up, it was over. And that's what happened. Evidently, from that game when he was with Philadelphia, and then Doc Rivers after the game said, I don't know if he can win, if he's a winner. And that was the end of him, really. From that point on, back surgery and everything else that went on. I'd love to see him come back. He was a good player, but I don't know if he's interested.
Yeah, that's so infuriating, right? For people who love the game, but really you can't play it like me. I love the game. Give me 6 more inches. Give me a jump shot. Yeah, I would have loved to have had that opportunity. And it's so infuriating when you have somebody like that with all of the talent and just doesn't want to play.
I wouldn't be surprised if he sits out a year. If he really loves the game, he sits out.
Okay.
And then next year, he tries to get back in. And he knows he'll have to take minimum salary and everything else if he really likes the game. If he doesn't, then say goodbye.
Yeah. Interesting. We'll see how that plays out. And there's always the possibility, right, that somebody mid-season entices him to come back. He was impactful for the Clippers. He played a little bit for them at the end of last season. And he was fun to watch. He made good decisions. Of course, he didn't shoot, but you didn't need him to shoot. In the right situation, we've talked about this before, get the right player in the right situation with the right people, and he can blossom. It's just,
hope you think about it. If he's going to come back or if he's going to play, he's got to sign, not with a very good team. He played with the Clippers last year and he played minimal amount of time. He needs to sign with a team that's not that good so he gets time and can reprove himself as a reliable basketball player.
Yep. Let's see how things play out. Hopefully things do well for Ben Simmons. I just think he's too young to hang him up, but we'll see how things go. You wrote next about the NBA and a problem it had with restricted free agency. And you called out specifically Cam Thomas, Jonathan Kuminga, which is another big storyline in the NBA offseason, Quentin Grimes, and Josh Giddey. Now, you and I talked about this earlier. Been following a little bit, right, of the Kuminga thing and the Josh Giddey thing, but I didn't know there was a problem here. So educate us. What's going on there?
Okay. It's really simple. If you're an NBA player, if you're good, a rookie coming into the league, sometime you get your contract renewed each year. Sometime in your third year or after your third year, the team will sit down with you and offer you big money or good money, whether they're going to get rid of you. And you sign and you move along. These 4 guys were never they were offered, but they didn't re-sign. Now, when you think about this, they're restricted The idea being go out and get an offer, bring it back to your team, and if they match, you stay with them. If not, but the problem becomes with offers, they're not going to come. Why would anybody offer Kuminga 20 million or 25 million, whatever it is, when he might take it back to Golden State and they're going to match it? So what happens is exactly what Cam Thomas is doing. Cam Thomas is taking the normal, whatever it is that a guy would get, which is $6 million. He's getting paid $6 million next year, plays 1 year. They can't trade him. He's got to stay with the Nets for the year. And then he's a free agent where he can go anywhere. So Cam Thomas is giving away one of his prime years for only $6 million. He's losing that. And if he gets hurt, it's over. Now, $6 million is nothing to sneeze at, but he's got the potential to make a lot more. So it's an interesting problem. And the teams in the NBA have figured out, why would I offer Kuminga money? Why would I offer Giddey money or any of these people when their team will sign them? Giddey is an interesting thing. They're offering $22 million, the Bulls. If you look at point guards, Quickly got 32 or 35. Giddey's pretty good. He's got to be worth on the market at least 27 to 30. So they're only offering him 22. He's holding. But at some point, are you going to take the 6 or are you going to take the 22? You're going to take the 22 and deal with it, I would think, although some people could be stubborn. So that's an interesting thing. Now, when you talk about Giddey, I'll talk about him specifically. He's not a good defensive player. Not at all. Teams always go at him. He's a real good offensive player. The question I have is, do you win a title with a point guard who can't guard? I don't know about that. So, especially in today's NBA. So, I don't know, is he worth it? Yeah, the Bulls they're the Bulls. It's an interesting thing. Quentin Grimes played real well with Philadelphia last year. Happened. Nothing. Kuminga's been a problem with Golden State, and they're trying to figure that out, and it's holding up Al Horford and everybody else because they've got money. So these are issues. Cam Thomas can score, but a lot of the NBA isn't sold on him because he's a shoot first, shoot second guy. It's a lot of interesting stuff going on. He will get a great opportunity at the Nets because they're going to be horrible. So if he plays, he'll score. But it's very interesting. If you're a restricted without a contract, you got a problem.
Yeah. Yeah, I know we've been sitting on, of the four, Jonathan Kuminga, I think, again, that's been dominating the NBA offseason news. And it's weird to think that we're still here. Preseason games start in about 4 weeks. So shocking, maybe a little longer, about 6 weeks. But yeah, let's see how it plays out. Let's leave a good amount of time for this last topic, which we've talked about before. And I'll admit it's still fuzzy to me. But it's been dominating the news since this became a thing, and that is NBA's second apron. Essentially, right, every team has a cap. There's a salary cap, but you can spend over the cap, right? So essentially, if you spend over the cap, you get penalized. If you spend over a little even more, that's the second apron, first apron, second apron. And the more you spend, the more penalties you get. The idea is we don't want everybody just collecting all the best players. Now, you said earlier today on this very call that this was the Steve Ballmer rule. And I don't think I've never heard that before, but it makes sense. And it wasn't directly created because of Steve Ballmer, wasn't it? Or it was created for players or ownerships like Steve Ballmer, guys with a lot of money.
Small market teams were always concerned because they couldn't match spending the money that those teams did. And we can get into all the television money and all the other money they're getting, which is a whole different thing. I think Brad Stevens said this. The problem isn't, and the Celtics payroll with tax, they pay tax on their players because they were way into the second apron. Their payroll was over $400 million, which is ridiculous.
Wow.
But Brad Stevens said, and the ownership said, that's a problem. Sure, nobody wants to pay that. But the bigger problem, instead of like worrying about the 400, is the rules that restrict you. In other words, and I'm going to give you a few. First thing is, if you have, let's say, here, the Celtics had Drew Holiday, they traded this year. They were in the second apron. The guy they got back had to make less than Holiday or the same. Couldn't make more. Now, also, you couldn't trade and put, let's say, Holiday and Porzingis in the deal. It could only be one player you can deal, which kind of restricts you. So that's one thing. You couldn't, what's called aggregating salaries. In other words, put people together. You could get two players back, but you can't trade two players. Also, you couldn't put any cash in trades. You couldn't put money in trades. Also, if you do it 3 out of 5 years, you will lose your first round. You won't lose it, but your first round pick will automatically be last, no matter where you are as a franchise. So for three years in the second apron, you got a problem. Out of 5. These are issues. There's another thing too, called the mid-level exception. A team under the cap, a non-tax team, can go out and sign a guy. I believe it's 13 or 14 million right now. They can sign a guy, just even if they're over the cap but not in the tax, or even under, and if it takes them over the cap. If you are in the second apron, you can't. If you're in the first apron, you can take the room, which is a lot less, 6 million, I believe. So there's rules that restrict you from going out and getting the extra player. And let's use the Lakers. The Lakers have used that in the last couple of years, trying to fill a roster around LeBron.
Yeah.
Take that away. Boston couldn't do it. A couple teams still are in that. The other thing that's really interesting, let us say that tomorrow morning, Boston waives, who do you want? Jaylen Brown. It's ridiculous. But if they do, if you are in the second apron, you can't. You can only go after a guy making, I'm going to guess 14 million or less, somewhere in that area. So now that's not going to happen. But what happens is in March, the buyout time, guys get bought out. You have a team that's good and you have a chance to win it. And that player who's making 15 or 16 million is being bought out because his contract's up. And boy, he'd push you over the top. You can't do that. So these rules are just some of them that take you out of it and really just makes it very difficult to continue winning. It's really, to me, it's wrong because if you build a team, especially if these players are yours, there's nothing here. Let's use Jaylen Brown and Tatum. Again, we're talking about the Celtics. Brown and Tatum making big bucks, probably between the two, about 140 million. That's, if the cap is only 205, think about that. You got to fill out the rest of your team on 60, 70 million dollars. Now, you see the restriction, and those are guys you drafted, you picked up, you figured out how they fit, and now you have to come to a point where you might have to get rid of one. That's not right. But that's going to happen with other teams. Boston is back under the cap. I know Cleveland might be the only team right now above the cap. So it's going to happen. It's going to. Mitchell just re-signed, but I'm sure he was all league. And when you're all league, you get more money. When his next contract comes up, they get more. So it's a major problem for teams. And I believe a lot of teams just feel it's just not fair. It's really an unfair thing.
Yeah, it's interesting. Yeah, I did look it up. You're absolutely right. The Cavs are the only team right now over that second apron. So teams are adjusting. They're figuring it out. It's interesting to me. You brought the Celtics up a couple of times in some hypotheticals. The Celtics wouldn't have done. Let me ask you in the form of a question. They wouldn't have done what they did with Porzingis and on Horford and so many people that have left that team if the second apron wasn't a thing. Is that fair?
If Tatum getting hurt changed the whole thing.
That's true.
That changed it. So if Tatum were healthy, it wouldn't. I would think they would have kept him. There's one other thing that's interesting. That tax money, everybody that pays the tax, Boston, the Golden State, they all pay tax. When the money comes in, 50% of that money is divided up among those teams that are under the tax.
Yeah.
So last year or this year, whatever, $11.5 million went to each team. So just follow me. The Charlotte, and I use Charlotte because that's one of the small markets in the NBA.
Yeah.
Jordan owned them and he made a bundle out with them. He didn't have to win. He's walking away with $11 million. Now, the NBA contract with TV, they're walking away with a couple $100 million each team each year. So now you start thinking about it. To own an NBA team just off TV, forget the people that come to the games, just off TV, the national thing, that money you're bringing in, you're making money while you're winning 20 games. Why would you want to win? If you're in it for the money, this is the way to do it. So there's some problems with it, and it really separates the teams that want to win and the teams that are just, and then when a guy, Indiana has not paid the tax, I believe, in over 10 years. I don't know if they've ever paid the tax. Think about that. They were pretty good last year. And with Miles Turner this year, he would have put them in the tax. With Halliburton hurt, they let him go. And it tells you, a little bit about it. In Indiana, they're always packed. They always got a good crowd.
Yeah.
Who's it? Herb Simon, I believe, is the owner. He's counting his money, and he's doing well. So winning the championship in the NBA might be about 10 teams want to do it. And then there's 20 teams $40. And I'm guessing. But
I get it. Yeah.
Piece that are really, I believe Golden State a couple of years ago, 2 years ago maybe, was paying over $500 million in salary and tax. Think about that. $500 million for 15 players.
Yeah.
It's wild.
And then the Charlotte Hornets are sitting there winning 20 games, getting them $11 million plus the TV money for nothing. I've been on the fence about this, but I think you just convinced me. I'm going to go ahead and buy a team. So thank you for pushing me over the edge there. I'm excited to do it.
Be a capologist. I'll take care of it. Yeah, it's absolutely. I understand if you're in a small market, but don't forget, you're in a small market. Boston went for $6 billion. The Lakers went for $9 billion. Charlotte only went for about 2, I believe. I don't know the exact number.
Bargain.
You're in a small market. What do you expect? You're making money. If Charlotte was to be sold now, they'd probably get over 3. And Jordan walked away with a lot of money, boy. They never won.
No. But they still made money. Yeah.
That second apron was really, and Oklahoma City might be something that we don't expect or won't see that often. A team winning it once and having a chance to win 1 or 2 more, because you have to break them up before you go broke and before you can't do anything.
Yeah. Outstanding. Yeah. We've talked about it before. We've never gotten to that detail. Lots of good things to talk about regarding that second apron. I want to encourage all of you to read Steve's article, get a little bit more information. But you heard the buzzer go off. Our time is up. We went past the shot clock again. But again, good conversation. Again, interesting topics, even during the off season. I guess that's what we love about the NBA. But that's it. Our time is up. You might have heard the buzzer. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. Make sure to read Steve's entire 13 Rules Random NBA Thoughts article. We'll link it wherever you are watching or listening to this show today. And join us next week for more Random NBA Thoughts. When we talk to, we mentioned at the start of the show, the Spurs Bros, about the San Antonio Spurs. We're going to talk about their offseason moves. We're going to talk about we're going to talk about De'Aaron Fox. We're going to talk about Victor Wembanyama, Stephen Castle. Lots to talk about from what I think is going to be a pretty exciting team the next season. We'll talk about the offseason and expectations for the San Antonio Spurs players. Of course, please subscribe, follow. All of that means a lot to us. Hope that you will join us again next week when we talk San Antonio Spurs. Thanks, Steve.
Thank you. Take care.